Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we have a Volvo. Let me check what series is this. It's XC90 D5 AWD. So unfortunately this vehicle is back. It has come to the garage with the same problem with the 1600 and 1000 fault code. So I have done the repair previously, but unfortunately I was wrong, so I have deleted that video from my channel. So if everyone has used that video as a guide, I apologize for that. That was wrong. So what I'm going to explain you little bit that why I was wrong, but unfortunately, so this arm was freeze at this position, which is right now here, as you can see, and the ignition is off, as you can see, but that is still, the arm is still freezed at swirl flap plates at open position. So when this arm is here, so the swirl flap plates are in fully open position, so they are fully open and full amount of air is allowed to enter the intake manifold and to the combustion chamber. So I thought, I was thinking that this is mechanically faulty, so the mechanical mechanism is faulty, or the gears inside this swirl flap position actuator is worn out, and that's it is sticking so at whatever reason, but that wasn't the case. This is very, very true. Until you don't know the system operation, you will not be able to repair it. So now I have realized that when this arm was freezed at this position here, the engine already had gone to a limp mode position, so the fault codes were stored, and this was staying freeze here. And also, as you can see, let me show you, I have marked, if you can see here, the turbo actuator link, which I have marked, this one, this is now at rest position. So when the fault code is stored and the engine goes to a limp mode, the turbo actuator disables the wind movement of the turbo. So now the ignition is off and the arm is at this position, as you can see. I have marked, let me, so I have marked the position of the turbo, as you can see here. I have marked this here. This is in rest position right now, and the ignition is off. I'm going to show you that the ignition is off. Where is that? So it's zoom in too much. So the ignition is off right now. and that arm is at rest. The turbo actuator, when the turbo when actuator is at rest position. So now I'm going to turn the ignition on, and you watch it here. So I'm going to turn the ignition on. The arm has moved because the engine management light is not yet turned on. Okay, now I'm going to start the engine, and then I'm going to show you when the fault code is permanently stored in the engine control unit, and then I'm going to show you that how the turbo when actuator can be disabled by the engine control unit, and this arm will stay here. And also I'm going to show you when the fault code is clear, this arm is going to stay here at ignition on, engine off, and also engine idling. So I'm going to start the vehicle. It's morning time here, and the engine is a bit cold. As you can see right now, the engine is idling, and this arm is in forward position, and right now the swirl flap plates are fully open. And as you can see, the turbo when actuator is at rest position, so the engine has gone to a limp mode. Now the turbo is disabled, the turbo is no longer functioning, it's not boosting the air to enter the intake manifold, followed to the combustion chamber. And also this one is also remains this arm in forward position, as you can see. Now the engine is in limp mode. So when the engine was in limp mode, unfortunately last time I didn't know that this arm stays in forward position after engine going to a limp mode. So I thought that is this one, the swirl flap position actuator is faulty, but that is not the case. So as you can see now, okay, now I'm going to clear the fault code and show you that, and that's completely in position when the ignition is completely off. Okay, now I'm going to clear the fault code, and I'm going to show you this two position, this arm, the swirl flap position actuator arm position, and also the turbo actuator when actuator rod or bar position. I have cleared the fault code. As you can see here, I'm going to show you no fault code, no fault code is stored in the memory. Now I'm going to start the engine. Okay, I've started the engine. Okay, we did no fault code stored in the memory, so as you can see the arm has moved upward, and this is still in forward position because the engine is cold. As soon as the engine reaches its operating temperature, that will move backward this way towards the front of the engine, and whenever the engine has gone back to limp mode position, so this is going to stay here at backward position to the vehicle backward position, and the turbo actuator bar will move downward. As you can see, I'm going to mount the camera here, and I'm going to turn the engine off. So I'm going to turn the engine off. As you can see, the bar has moved downward. So now this is the last mistake, the cause of last mistake which I have made, and I explained to you. Now we are going to rectify this problem. Now, first I'm going to show you the data of this. Let me, if I can zoom that in, let me do like 8. Okay, it's a 8 times zoom now. Okay, so 1 second. Okay. This is pin 4, which is the signal wire for the boost pressure sensor. Number 2, this is for the intake air temperature. We don't do anything with the number, sorry, this is number 3. This is the supply 5 volt supply voltage to the boost pressure sensor. This is number 2. Number 2 is the intake temperature sensor wire, and we don't want to do anything with this one. And this is number 1, which is shared by the boost pressure sensor and the intake temperature sensor together. So once again, because I'm going to clarify this, because sometime in my speech there is a problem. So number 4 is the boost pressure sensor signal wire. Number 3 is the 5 volt supply voltage to the boost pressure sensor, to this one. Number 2 is the intake air temperature sensor wire, and number 1 is the earth or ground wire for both, for boost pressure sensor or intake air temperature sensor. So once again, I didn't explain very well. So number 4 is the signal wire for boost pressure sensor. Number 3 is the supply 5 volt supply voltage to the boost pressure sensor. Number 2 is the intake air temperature wire. Number 1 is shared by both boost pressure sensor and intake air temperature sensor ground. This is number one is the ground or earth for both sensor. So now I'm going to back probe this one. So the red lead of the lab scope is going to be on number 4, and the black lead of the scope is going to be on number 1. This is the red lead of the scope, lap scope, and now I'm going to back probe and use the black lead of the scope for ground. Okay, as you can see, so red lead of the lap scope is on number 4, on pen number 4, and the black lead of the scope is on wire 1 or pen 1, which is the ground one. Okay, now as you can see, let me zoom that out. Okay, as you can see, the ignition is off. So now I'm going to turn the ignition on. So I have turned the ignition on, and this is the current data or signal reading from the boost pressure sensor. As you can see, 1.78, and sometime the fault code freeze frame is very important. Very important. I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to check. So I'm going to check the freeze frame. So freeze frame. Okay, as you can see here, engine load is 0. When the fault code, when the fault has occurred, the engine was stopped. The engine load is 0. Let me. Okay, engine speed also 0, as you can see. So sometimes the fault code frame freeze frame data is very important. So it means that this fault code is occurred whenever you turn the ignition to on position. Before you start the engine, you do anything. So the as soon as you turn the ignition to on position, this fault code is going to start. As you can see, engine speed is 0. So I'm going to go back, escape. So both, as you can see, the status is permanent fault and this one is intermittent. So atmospheric pressure sensor faulty signal. So unfortunately, O2 data in the United Kingdom, in spite of that, they charge garages or subscriber £75 for everything, for the wiring diagram, technical data, and engine management system, but unfortunately they don't have much for this money. So for this vehicle, which is 2011, they don't have any boost pressure or engine management data specification to compare with this data, which is currently, I am showing you that one. Let me zoom that in. So ignition is on, and that is 1.78 volt. The signal output, the boost pressure signal output to the ECU is 1.78. So, and the reason of the fault code is here. Let me zoom that out. Okay, as you can see, it says that boost pressure sensor signal out of range. It means that, so with the engine off, ignition on, the data which is received by the ECU from boost pressure sensor is wrong. So now I'm going to replace the sensor with another sensor, and I'm going to show you the data when you turn the ignition on. So remember this. Remember this. Right now, from the faulty boost pressure sensor, you receiving with the engine off, ignition on, 1.78 volts to the ECU. And another thing that, so even though if I clear this fault code, as soon as I turn the ignition off and turn it on again, this fault code is going to store. So once again, I'm going to clear this fault code. I'm going to ignition is on, so I'm going to, okay, system pass, no fault code. Okay, I'm going to turn the ignition off. Okay, ignition off. Wait for a while. So as you can see, the boost pressure sensor is still alive, as you can see. So with the ignition even off, the sensor is still alive. So I'm going to wait until this has returned to zero. As you can see, the ignition is off. It's too much zoom in, so I'm going to wait until, as you can see, it has gone to zero. Now I'm going to turn, so let me zoom that out a little bit. So I'm going to turn the ignition on. So ignition is on, and that data, as you can see back, it's 1.78 volt. So now I'm going to check for trouble code again. So that's the same fault code has come back. And if you go to freeze frame here, freeze frame, so engine load is 0 and engine speed is 0. It means that as soon as you turn the ignition to on position, the fault code is going to store in the ECU. Now I'm going to replace the boost pressure sensor, and I'm going to show you the data while the ignition is on, and also I'm going to turn the ignition on and off, and I'll show you that whether the fault code is returning back or not. Okay, this is the sensor, and this cost me £42.58. It's not the genuine one, but because you know, customer is not paying that was my mistake. So I'm going to save as much money as I can for myself. So I opted for this one, and I'm going to install this one and show ignition on, engine off, signal data or signal voltage to you, and then I'm going to check whether the fault code is returning or not, and then I will be taking the vehicle to a road test as well. So anyway, I will not record the road test driving period, because the fault code is not occurring while the engine is running, because the fault code is occurring as soon as you turn the ignition to on position. So I'm going to install this one and show you the data of this sensor. Okay, I have removed the sensor. This is a genuine Volvo sensor, and it's secured just by one screw, which is T15 or Torx 15 beat. So now I'm going to install this one and go for the further procedure. Okay, as you can see, I have installed the new boost pressure sensor and also back probed as red lead or positive lead of the scope to pin 4, and the ground or black lead of the lab scope to pin 1. As you can see, okay, this is the one. Okay, zoom that in, out. So now I'm going to clear the fault code. So ignition is off, so I'm going to go back to, so there are still fault code existed stored in the ECU. I'm going to turn the ignition on and I'm going to clear the fault code. So yes, okay, check table code. Okay, no fault code. As you can see, no fault code. And also I have connected the, this is the data, the signal boost pressure sensor signal wire data, which is going to the ECU, and it's 1.67, and the previous, the faulty one, was 1.87, I think. So I think it was 1.78 or 1.87. I forget things very quickly. So this is the data. Now I'm going to zoom that out. So I'm going to turn the ignition off, take the key out, and wait until that has returned to, so until the boost pressure sensor supply voltage cuts. So ignition is off, as you can see. Ignition is off, and yeah, now the power supply to the boost pressure sensor or 5 volt reference voltage has cut off. So now I'm going to zoom that out. So I'm going to turn the ignition on. 1 second. Ignition is on, and the live data from the boost pressure is 1.67. okay, so now I'm going to check the fault code. So as you can see, fault code has not been returned, so I'm going to exit once again to make sure that refresh completely the scanner. No fault code has returned. So once again I'm going to turn the ignition off and wait. Come on. So wait for the boost pressure to depowerized or depowered to become yeah, as you can see, the 5-volt reference has gone off, and now let me zoom that out. So I'm going to turn the ignition on and I'm going to check the treble code. That's very good, good news. In spite of that, I paid £42.58 from my pocket, but the good news was that at least at the end I got the vehicle repaired. And also to be mentioned, the vehicle was 3 times here. That's no good at all. But the problem is that I didn't have any O2 data information about this vehicle, and also with the Volvo I haven't dealt that much with the Volvo vehicle. So this was my first vehicle. I didn't know how its management system, engine management system operating. So that's very true. If you don't know the system, how it operating or how the system is operating, you will not be able to repair it. That's very true. So hopefully someone get benefit from this video. So now I'm going to drive the vehicle and once again check if the fault code has returned. So this was just cycling the ignition switch to on and off position. Once again I'm going to start the engine. So no triangle warning light, and also if you see, I'm going to snap the accelerator and see. So I'm going to drive the vehicle. So this is as you can see, I'm driving the vehicle. The vehicle is right now at 40 miles per hour, and as you can see, no sign whatever. Okay, I have just returned from a short trip, and now I'm going to check the vehicle whether there is any fault. No, it says no freeze frame fault code detected. That's very good. I'm going to exit. As you can see, the engine is running. This is for the steering angle sensor, as you can see. So I'm going to check the control module. Here, control module, treble code. No treble code, that's very good. So I'm going to go back. So, and I'm going to where is the steering angle sensor? This I'm going to show you. As you can see here, this is for the why it's not focusing. What is going on? Why you cannot? Okay, as you can see, this is for the steering angle sensor. So that was a successful repair. I'm going to go back once again, and as you can see, engine control module. So I have brought the vehicle to, so now please, so I'm going to turn the ignition off. So the ignition off, as you can see, the ignition is off. Now ignition is on. So I'm going back. Yeah, that's good. Very happy. And I'm going to give and apologize for the customer that he brought the vehicle 2-3 times, but what can I do? That was my ability. I have done my best, but good news is that finally we repaired the vehicle with no extra cost for the customer. Only the customer time was wasted little bit. You can see the engine is running and the engine is at its operating temperature, and the arm has returned to its normal place where it should be now. The arm is, the flap is approximately, the swirl flap plates are approximately closed because the engine is idling. And also, if you can see, I'm not sure if you are able to see, I haven't got the light here, and the arm is also in actuated position. The turbo actuator, the turbo vent actuator is in actuated position. Let me zoom that in. If you can see, that's fully upward. Okay, this is the arm, and as you can see, I'm going to turn the engine off, and you see the arm will move to its rest position. Yeah, and now I'm going to, okay, the arm is at rest position. This has gone forward, as you can see. When the engine was idling, it was here, here, so it has gone to, let me okay, as you can see, the arm is moved that way, and the turbo actuator okay, now I'm going to start the engine again. As you can see, the turbo arm has moved up, and the swirl flap, the position actuator arm has moved backward. So because the engine is normal running, or the engine is normal operating, there is no any fault code stored in the engine control unit, so that should operate like so.